Adam, should we get started at 10:30 or do you want to give it a minute or two after that?
Yeah, let's go 10:32, just
Okay,
just as folks are still trickling in.
sounds good.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give it 2 more minutes here as folks are still trickling in here, and we will go ahead and get started at 1:32. Thanks. If you're just joining in, we're going to get started at 1:32, so in just a few moments. Thanks. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the WISEstaff new user training, and we'll go over the final certification as well. My name is Adam Miller. I'm on the customer services team. I'm joined by Jennifer Janik, who is the WISEstaff guru. So we will get started here and go from there. All right. Okay, so here's an overview of what we'll cover today. For anyone brand new to working with WISEstaff data collection, we'll talk briefly about what it is and cover important dates and deadlines. Our main focus today will be on the tasks required to complete your WISEstaff final data certification, which is covered by steps 3 and 4 on the staff collection checklist within WISEstaff. In addition to covering the tasks required, we'll share some tips on how to review your data to ensure it's complete and accurate, how to make corrections, and why data quality matters. Finally, we'll go through what happens after the final certification deadline, including how to view your published data and what to do if you find errors after publication. All right, so why do we collect data? We use this data to fulfill state and federal reporting requirements. We conduct licensing audits to verify whether staff are appropriately licensed for their assignments. We use special education assignment data to secure funding for aid reimbursement. And we generate public staff reports that are used by teachers, journalists, and members of the education community. WISEstaff is a secure application accessed through Wise Home that we use to manage required information about school staff members. We collect assignment information for all staff positions within schools, including teachers, paraprofessionals, administrative staff, as well as support staff like custodians, bus drivers, and school nurses. The assignment data we collect includes the positions such as teacher and area, so elementary school classroom, history, etc., grades served, FTE, and some additional assignments related questions. In addition to the staff demographic and assignment data, we collect contract related data such as salary, fringe benefits, highest education degree, and years of local and total experience for only the staff whose assignments indicate that contract data is required. We always get questions about which staff need to be reported in WISEstaff. The answer is all staff who work in any capacity providing services to your students during the regular school year. You do not need to report summer school staff. The other question we get is whether to report staff who are hired midway through the school year. Our guidance is that only the staff that you planned for as of the third Friday in September should be reported. If you have a vacancy at the beginning of this year and fill it after the third Friday, then you would report that staff once they are hired because you had that position planned for. If staff leave after the third Friday, you would still report their assignment if you had planned for them to be with you for the full year. All right. So here's the calendar for the remainder of this school year. You'll find these dates within the WISEstaff on the home overview page and on the WISEstaff reporting information page on the DPI website. The window for submitting your final certification will open on March 4th. The submission of your final certification is your indication to DPI that you have reported all required staff data and reviewed it for completeness and accuracy. The deadline for the final certification submission is March 18th, end of the day. You continue to make updates to your staff data up until the end of the day on March 18th. Starting March 19th, WISEstaff data will become view only and you will no longer be able to make changes to your data. DPI will take a snapshot of the staff data, which will be used for our yearly publication of staff reports and the yearly licensing audit. Those staff reports will be published around the end of April or very early May, and the licensing audit will be started at the end of May and will continue into June. The publication of the final licensing auditing results will occur around January 20th. So to keep track of those dates and deadlines, we provide a staff checklist that shows you the required tasks, when they're done, and what your progress is. Find the checklist in WISEstaff under the Home menu and refer to it regularly to keep track of your tasks as each deadline approaches. The checklist is split into 4 parts with tasks related to the time of the year included in each relevant section. Our current focus is the tasks contained with step 3, so finalize contract data and correct assignment audit errors. The individual tasks included in this section include reviewing your preliminary licensing audit results, uploading or finalizing your staff contract data, which includes salary, benefits, years of experience, reviewing and verifying the quality of your data, working through any system-generated data, validation errors and warnings, and submitting your final certification. We'll review each of these tasks in the upcoming slides. You can find more information for each section by clicking the help link on the far right of any of the section headings on the staff collection checklist. So here's a screenshot of that staff collection checklist and what it looks like. So we'll switch over to our WISEstaff test environment, and Jennifer will do a demonstration in a few minutes. So let's start with some tips about using the checklist. Each task has a status. Some tasks have a system-generated status, and some have a checkbox for you to click when you're ready to mark it as completed. So here's a look at a kind of a stripped down version of the task status. So you can see that 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3F are marked as completed, and 3D, 3E, 3G, and 3H are incomplete. Within the task list, any task description in blue font can be clicked to take you right to the screen where you would complete the task. If you're not sure what's expected for a task or how to complete it, click the help link in the upper right corner of the step 3 banner. You'll find more information about each step. On the far right of the step 3 tile, you'll see a count of the number of opened items for each task. Be ready for your final certification. To be ready for your final certification, all counts should be 0, which are shown in green. And then Jennifer is going to jump into a demo.
Hi everyone, Jennifer Janik here. You may know me from the weekly WISEstaff user group calls. I work with the team that manages the WISEstaff application. So let's take a look at the staff collection checklist. So this is our test environment here. We've got steps 1 and 2 that we've already gone through, and so now our focus is step 3 right here. So at the top of the section, you can see the dates that we're working within and our deadline of March 18th. Here's that help link that Adam mentioned if you want a little bit more information about what to do with the tasks contained within step 3. So there's each of the tasks are listed here with a little bit more information about what that task includes. So you can refer to that at any time. And then down here, here's that status column that Adam mentioned. So it indicates which of your tasks are complete. So keep in mind that for things like loading or finalizing your contract data, the system marks that as complete, and I'll put complete in quotes, once you have 1 or more contracts entered. So we can't really know if you're truly complete because we don't know how many contracts you're meant to load for the year. But as long as you've started the task, you'll see that checkbox there, and you would only see the red circle if you hadn't started that task at all, meaning no contracts had been loaded. So here are some examples of ones where these are not final or complete yet. In the case of the run validation, it's because there are existing errors that need to be resolved before you could do your final certification. And in the case of this one, it is because we have not yet opened the window to do your final certification. So here are those count columns that we saw, and it shows you the number of items. Some of these are like the number of contracts you have or aggregate assignments, and some refer to the number of active errors or warnings that you have that might need to be reviewed, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation. And then the last thing I wanted to show is the ability to click on any of these that are blue to go right to the page that you want to do the work for. So if we want to go right to the Validate Staff Data page and review some of these errors that we have, you can click there and that will take you right to that page. And then I can always come back to the staff collection checklist and get to that from the home menu. And we'll just be a little patient with our test environment as it navigates back. All of the tasks that you have here that are clickable can also be found in the navigation here, but these are just easy ways to go right to either some of these reports or your load contract page. So it's all up to you as to how you want to navigate that. And that's all we've got for right now for demos. So Adam, we will go back to you.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So 3A. So each year the licensing educator advancement and development, so lead team conducts an audit of all public school districts in the state of Wisconsin to ensure that all professional staff members are appropriately licensed. Review your audit reports and make corrections needed prior to moving forward with the other steps in step 3. Example, if you have assignment changes to make and work on step 3C first, you will end up having to go back and redo some of your work. Once the contracts and data are set, then move on to the next step in step 3. These reports show you where your staff's licenses are not matching up with the reported assignments for the year. Remember, you can click that task description to go right to the audit results report page. There are 4 reports issued after each stage of the audit. So at this time of the year, you'll see 4 preliminary reports for the 24-25 school year. Review the error reports to see which staff may need to obtain additional licensing based on their reported assignment, and the reject report to see which staff are missing entity IDs and were not audited. Read the auditor comments in the error reports to determine the course of action needed for each issue. The main report to pay attention to is the audit error report. Look through to see who doesn't have licenses or who doesn't have the appropriate licenses for the assignments given. The reports have dates on them. It is possible you fix some of this after the date, so be sure to check the dates on the audit report and then cross-check to make sure it has indeed been updated. Keep in mind that the expectation for educator licensing per state statute is to have entity IDs and valid licenses in place at the start of the school year, but you do still have time to rectify licensing or license errors for any staff without an entity ID or without proper licensing. So the goal of preliminary licensing audit is to have the corrections made prior to the final audit. For staff on the report who don't have an entity ID or who need additional licensing for the reported assignments, have the educator submit their license application through ELO or have them follow up on outstanding items on their active applications to keep them moving forward. All license errors need to be resolved before the final licensing audit in June. If you discover that a coding error was made when reporting a staff member, you can make those corrections directly in WISEstaff before completing your final certification. All corrections made on or before March 18th will be included in the snapshot and final licensing audit. For staff whose assignments were not audited due to a missing entity ID or outstanding validation errors, you can manually review their qualification using the Edit Assignment page in WISEstaff and information on the DPI website. Uh, Below the assignment fields on the Edit Assignments page, there is a section called View License Requirements for Selected Assignment and one called Licensing Information. Click the arrow to expand each section to review the requirements for the assignment you've selected and compare them to license information for that educator. We've also included a link to the What Can I Teach page on the DPI website where you or the educator can find more information on whether their current license covers their reported assignments and grade levels. So there are several potential consequences when staff are not reported properly licensed by the time the final audit is run and published. So staff assignment data is used to generate staff reports that DPI publishes, which can include data on ineffective, inexperienced, and out of field teachers by district. Those metrics are impacted when the staff are reported in the wrong assignments or are not properly licensed for their reported assignments. Special education grants or Title I funding may be jeopardized if staff are not reported in the correct assignment or licensed for those assignments. In addition, staff wishing to obtain a lifetime license may have challenges documenting their experience if it is not reported correctly in WISEstaff. All right, so we're going to turn it over to Jennifer, and she's going to dive into a demo.
Thanks, Adam. So we're going to look at a couple things related to those licensing audits. The first one is I just wanted to show you, in case you are not familiar with it yet, of the audit results page, which is under the reports menu in WISEstaff. And there are 4 reports generated for each audit period. So right now we have preliminary reports for the current school year that are available. And again, the most important ones to look at are the audit reports, which is the error reports, all errors for staff. Special education audit errors are the errors for just the staff in special education assignments. And the reject report is the one for staff who were not audited, typically because they did not have an entity ID. So for each of the reports, you can view it in a PDF format or in an Excel format, depending on which one you're more comfortable with. And I do have one that I did a screenshot of that we'll take a look at with the personal information blacked out here. So this is an error for the audit error. We've got the assignment that the person was reported in. The result is an error. Here is the error message, and it was that this staff was reported outside the grade range for the license grade range. And then there are some additional comments here as well that would help you understand what the action would be to correct this. And then in this section here, we list all of the licenses that this staff person has, and the asterisks here are flagging the license that was most applicable or the one that was used to generate this audit result. So that's just a little bit on how to read the audit results. And let's go back to I'm going to go back to my test environment, and we're going to take a look at the place where you can check to see if someone's assignment matches their license or if they have the correct license for their assignment. So if you go into any edit staff record by either clicking on their WISE ID from the staff list report, which is what I just did, or entering their WISE ID or their name in the person search. So I don't have an assignment yet for this person, but I can go ahead and add one. So after you've selected your assignment information, I'll go this way. You can see, once the assignment is selected, you can see the valid licenses that that educator would need. And this is dynamic. So if I change this now to, let's go to high school, And we're going to do agriculture teacher. And now you can see these have changed. So this would be one way to verify if what you have, if their assignment is matching the licenses that they have. And then down in the section below that, you can expand that to see the actual licenses that this individual does hold. And then you could check to see if that matches up. So that's one way to check for that information. I think that is all I wanted to look at for now. So let's go back to our slides, and Adam, back to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Jennifer. Let's take a look at 3B. So verify that you have all required entity IDs in place for staff with assignments requiring a license. We provide this information in several places throughout WISEstaff because it's such an important part of the reporting staff data. You've got task 3B on the checklist, which shows you the number of staff who have an assignment requiring a license, but no entity ID. We also have the widget on the dashboard that shows you the number of missing entity IDs, and we've got validation warning for 034 that you may see on your validation staff data page if you have staff without entity IDs. If that missing entity ID number on your checklist is anything besides 0, you'll need to follow up with those staff to have them provide you with their entity ID before May. So even though the ability to edit staff assignments and contract data will be closed after March 18th, you can still enter entity IDs into WiseID until May. Remember that entity IDs are issued when a license application is submitted. So at the bare minimum, all staff requiring licenses should have submitted their application and provided you with their entity IDs by this time of year.
Are we doing a,
If, oh, go ahead.
sorry, did you have more, Adam? I may have clicked the
Oh,
slide
no,
in
no,
advance
no, I
too
got,
soon.
yeah, a couple lines on this and then we'll
Okay,
go into the demo.
gotcha. Thank you,
Yeah,
sorry.
so if there are any remaining missing entity IDs at this time of the final audit, those staff will not be audited, which may lead to some of those consequences we covered on the previous slide. So if you need to merge entity IDs, you'll need to reach out to the licensing team. So this is different than a standard help ticket and will be covered further in this session. So, and then on to Jennifer for a demo.
Okay, so we're going to look at a couple things. The missing entity ID notifications that you'll see, one of those places is on your data quality dashboard. And if you have a widget that's orange and says acknowledged missing entity IDs with a number in there, that's something that was likely generated during the preliminary certification period. And you saw the validation, you entered a comment indicating why the staff didn't have an entity ID, but that needs to be resolved before the final certification deadline. So it's not enough to just acknowledge the warning and leave it sit out there. The goal is to have these all resolved before March 18th. And then this tile ultimately should be green with a 0 in it, indicating that there are no staff with missing entity IDs who are reported in licensed assignments. So that is one thing I wanted to cover. And then if you do have the entity ID or you want to look for the entity ID, we can do that within the edit staff record. So clicking on that widget shows you the individual who has the assignment that needs the entity ID. So if we click on their WISE ID, we will go right to their edit staff page, and you'll see this educator license ID section. And if it's empty, that means we haven't assigned an entity ID yet. And you can click this edit button and search the ELO database for an entity ID for that staff person. So if you have the entity ID and you know it, you can search for it that way, or you can search by name. and find the appropriate matching result. So anything in orange indicates it doesn't match the WISE-ID data. So ideally, you'd find a record with matching first name, last name, and birth date. And so this birth date here matches what I see here. So this would be the record that I want to choose. So you click on that. Your screen would show create change request instead of a save button. So you would click, you would need to enter a comment if there's any difference in the name between this information and WISE-ID information. You would let us know why the information is different. Maybe it's a last name change because of marriage or divorce, and you can indicate that you verified that it's the correct staff person. Click that create change request button, and that will create the change request that will then apply the entity ID to your edit staff WISE-ID record. So I think that's all we have to show for now. So back to you, Adam.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. And as the person who processes the WISE-ID change requests, is definitely helpful. Like if you are noticing there's a date of birth difference between ELO and WISE-ID, or like the name change. If someone gets married, it's very helpful if you just say, "Hey, this is staff member was married. Here's the new name." Um, just helps process those change requests a lot further or faster. Sorry. All right. So let's take a look at 3C. So the next task, 3C, load or finalize contract data. Contract data consists of staff salary and benefits information, as well as years of experience, the highest degree earned by the employee, and how many days they are contracted to work during the school year. If you reported your contract data during the preliminary certification step, you'll see the number of contracts shown on the far right side of the checklist page under the count column. If you don't already have your contracts reported, now is the time. Now, so not all staff assignments require that contract data be reported for them. Check the assignment code and list available in the WISEstaff resources menu to determine which staff needs to have contracts reported. There are two ways to report your contract information. You can do a bulk upload using the template provided, or you can manually enter contract data for each staff person on their edit staff page. So let's take a look at both of those on the demo.
Thanks, Adam. We're first going to look at that assignment code list, and I'll show you where to see if the assignment requires a contract. So if you go to the assignment code list, which again is in the resources menu in WISEstaff, and either search for a specific position or just click the search button to view all of them, there's this column over here that says contract required if the assignment is not subcontracted. So if you see a Y in this column, that means that anyone with that assignment, you'll also need to report their contract information for. And again, that's their salary, benefits, years of experience, highest degree. So that's where to find out if contracts are needed. And then for the entry of your contract information, you can, if you start from the checklist and click on that task, that will take you to the upload staff data page where you can select contract as your file type. You can download the contract template and then fill that in with the required information. And then down here, you would save that file on your system, click choose file, find that file and select it, and then click upload, and the system will upload and create contract records for all of the staff included in that file. So as far as the creation of that file, there's a couple different choices you might have for you. If you have an HR system, like a vendor system that works with the WISEstaff formats, you might be able to download your staff contract information from your HR system into this template format that we have and then upload it into WISEstaff. So that could be one option. Another option would be to download last year's contract information from WISEstaff and then make adjustments for this year and then upload that revised file. So if you want to pursue that choice or that option, you can go to the Download Staff Files page, which is also under the Manage Staff Data menu. And at the top of that page, we've got it's called this copy forward files, which is basically you're copying forward last year's information into this year. So it defaults to last year. So if you would click that download contracts, you would get a file with last year's contract information, and that would also update for you the years of experience and add one to all of those. So if we would assume that all of your staff from last year are continuing in this year, and last year somebody had 10 years of experience, what you would see in this download is 11 years of experience for that person. So you wouldn't have to manually adjust all those years of experience to increase them for this year. So that's another route you could go is you could download last year's contracts, add staff who are new for you this year, delete the staff no longer with you, update everybody's salary amounts, and then upload that file. And again, that creates the contract records for you. And then the other way to do contract entry is manually. And I'm going to come back to my edit staff page. And here in the current year contract details section, if you don't have a record here, you'll just see this, or you'll see an add contract button. And you can click that, and then this section just expands and you can see all of the fields that are required for the contract information. These little info icons, if you click those, it shows you in for a little bit more information about that item. So in this case, the fringe benefits talks about the WUFAR objects that are included in fringe benefits. So if you ever have questions, some of these might be helpful tips there, but you would fill out these required fields and then click save, and that creates your contract record. So that's the way to do that manually. That's typically not a great option if you have a lot of contracts to work with, but if you just have one or two to update or add that you hadn't added before, it might be easier to just do that as a manual entry here. And let's head back to our slides.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. So we're going to take a look at 3D. It's a task that not all districts will use. So aggregate assignment FTE data is collected for staff who are subcontracted from a third party to fill specific assignment types. Those are cafeteria workers, bus drivers, maintenance personnel. If you hire those staff and have WISE IDs and individual assignments reported for them, you'll not need to use the aggregate FTE page. If you do subcontract those staff, you'll report the total FTE by assignment for each company you contract with by clicking on the aggregate assignment task description. Once you have reported those staff, you can check the box to mark the task is complete. So the system will not generate the check mark for you for that one. All right, so 3E, verify data quality. The first thing we recommend is to review the data quality dashboard. This is a great place to compare last year's data to this year's data. In addition to the dashboard, we recommend reviewing the salary fringe variance reports as well as the aggregate staff report. If you have other tools that you use in your office, maybe HR reports that you compare to WISEstaff, this is the time to do those reviews as part of this task. The admin salary and fringe reports includes just the people with admin position types. You can see which assignments those are in the position drop down on the report page. You can view salary data on the report page or download it to Excel. You might find that this is data that is easier to look at in the download. This is helpful to see the percentage increase in salary, percentage fringe increase, and fringe total percentage of salary. Next, the aggregate staff report. This will only be available if you have these types of employees. As mentioned in the previous slide, these types of employees would be contractors hired out to the school, such as bus drivers, cafeteria, maintenance workers. For those types of employees, we don't collect their demographics and they won't have WISE IDs. This report will give you how many employees of these types you have. When using the report, make sure to click filter for the data to display. If you look at the screen where you enter the data, it'll give you this um, year's number and last year's numbers, which will be helpful in comparing and spot checking. Next, the salary and fringe variance report. This report is great for checking salary change and fringe benefits. You can set thresholds and it will highlight percentages above those thresholds. The report page here can be easier to use and find issues versus the download. So when something is highlighted in red, either from the preset thresholds or the thresholds you set, we don't know if the data is correct or if there's an error. We're just calling it out for you to review as the person familiar with it. So the red boxes highlighting data will not prevent you from completing the final certification. Again, this is just to help you review your data. So clicking the Verify Data Quality Task Description will take you to the report's overview page where you can view some of the other options for verifying data. When you've completed your reviews and believe your data is accurate and complete, check the box on the checklist to mark the task as done. All right, so here's a look at that report's overview page that you'll go to when clicking the 3E task description. From the checklist page, feel free to explore each one to find which of them will work best for you reviewing your data. We'll look at some of these reports more in depth coming up in a few minutes when we dig into covering data quality. So task 3F covers reviewing and resolving any system-generated data validation messages. Once your assignment and contract data have been entered, WISEstaff runs a validation process to confirm whether the data meets our minimum requirements and if there is anything that looks unusual. Validations come in 3 levels. So errors, which means a fix or change is required. Warnings, which means something may be wrong and should be reviewed. And information messages, which typically indicate that you have entered data that is not required in a certain situation, but doesn't require an action on your part. All of these validations can be found on the Validate Staff data page within the Manage Staff data menu. Each validation generates a code which links to a knowledge-based article that can provide more information about what is needed to fix the issue. Clicking on task 3G will take you to the certified data page where you'll do one final review of your hiring agency counts and then click the box to indicate your certification and click save to submit that certification to DPI. So again, make sure that you actually check the box and then click save. Prior to completing this step, look over the data quality dashboard one last time. This is provided on the same page where you will be completing step 3G. It's important to note that you will not be able to certify until all of your errors and warnings have been resolved or acknowledged. So ideally, you don't want to do this step until close to the deadline, so that you're looking at. Ideally, you don't want to do this step until close to the deadline, so that you're looking at the most current and accurate data. DPI pays close attention to the status of each LEA, and we need everyone to have the status of final certified on or before March 18th. So we're going to take a look at a demo next.
All right, so we can go back to the checklist here. And step 3, this is the task that we were just talking about, complete final agency certification. So if I click on that, I will go to the certify data page, which is also available in the manage staff data menu. And on this page, you'll see, this is the same page that you would have come to complete your preliminary certification back in November. So that part should be at the bottom of the page. And then now at the top of the page, we've got the final agency certification section. You'll see a repeat of the hiring and working agency counts that you have on the data quality dashboard. That's just our way of saying, make sure you're looking at these and everything looks correct. If you have something that's in red with a large increase or decrease, that might be something that you'd want to take a look at and revise or resolve before you certify. Otherwise, if everything looks good, and you have no open active errors or warnings, then you will be able to click this checkbox saying that you certify, and then you would click the Save button down here to submit that certification. And again, you will only be able to do that if you have resolved all of your errors and resolved or acknowledged all of your warnings. And let's head back to our slides.
All right. So 3H. Last in section 3 on the checklist is 3H. This task is completed by DPI, and you'll see the task marked as complete once the final snapshot is taken after March 18th. After the certification deadline, we disable edit access within WISEstaff, so you can no longer make updates to assignment or contract data. During that time, we take the snapshot of all of the staff data for the year, which is then used for the final licensing audit and for generation and publication of staff reports. One thing you'll still be able to do after WISEstaff data is locked is to enter entity IDs into WISE-ID that may still be missing. You'll be able to add entity IDs into WISE-ID through April. So now let's move on to talking about data quality tools within WISEstaff. We have 3 sets of tools to help with verifying data quality. We'll start with a high-level summary of the tools, and then we'll break them down into more detail in upcoming slides. So first up is the data quality dashboard. The dashboard is a summary of some key metrics that can be useful as an indicator of overall health of your data quality. You'll see these You'll see counts of your district's assignments, contracts, and staff members, as well as some key things to look at regarding teacher salaries. Next are the staff reports, some of which are called out on the staff collection checklist as part of 3E, so verify data quality. These reports will give you the full detail of what's behind those numbers on the dashboard. Next are the data validation errors and warnings. So WISEstaff runs a health check of staff data on a nightly basis and generates errors and warnings when certain criteria are not met or fall short of what's expected. Monitoring those errors and warnings and resolving the reported issues will help to keep staff data in good shape. Uh, Now, to learn more about those groups of tools, we'll start with the data quality dashboard located in the home menu in WISEstaff. The dashboard is a great way to get a quick glance of how your data is looking. The hiring agency counts section shows you how your numbers for key metrics look this year compared to last year, and how last year compared to the previous year. This data is pulling dynamically from the staff data you enter. So what you see on your dashboard is current based on your most recent updates. In each of these tiles, you'll see the number of items for the year and the 2 previous years. And you'll see a variance, so both numeric and percentage between this year and last year. along with an indicator of whether this year's number is higher or lower than last year's. We have tiles for the number of overall assignments and licensed assignments, number of contracts, number of staff, as well as total FTE and FTE for aggregate staff, if that's applicable to your district. Numbers in red indicate there may be an issue with the data, but it's not a guaranteed diagnosis. It's highlighted to call your attention to it so you can review it in more detail and determine whether there are errors or not. When reviewing the tiles, look for whether this year's numbers are higher or lower than last year's. Is that what you expected to see? Use these numbers to identify areas you should take a closer look at. To help with that, you can click on any of the count numbers to view a list of the staff who comprise the metric. So if you click on the assignments count for this year, you'll get a list of all staff assignments, including staff with multiple assignments each year. If you see a count that's in red, it indicates that the variance from last year to this year exceeds what DPI considers the standard. Numbers that are in red are not necessarily errors. You could very well have a large increase or reduction in staff year to year. We call those variances out in red to bring them to your attention so that you can review them in more detail to make sure this year's contract and assignment counts are accurate. If the numbers prove to be correct, there's nothing you need to do. Having numbers in red will not prevent you from certifying your data. In this slide, we see dashboard views for two districts. The top has no counts showing in red, and the button, the top one has no counts showing red, and the bottom one has one count in red. In the bottom image, for the licensed assignment count, a decrease of 14 assignments may be appropriate. So we do not know whether either number is correct, but when seeing them in red, you want to confirm that they are accurate against any HR records, and then make any adjustments as necessary. So the next section on the dashboard includes information about teacher salaries. We all know the teacher salaries can be a hot media topic, so it's important that they are entered correctly so the data is accurately reported to the public. The section on the bottom left of the dashboard is a 3-year comparison of the average teacher salary in your district and how it compares to the statewide average. You can also look at how changes in your average salary compare against the statewide change by looking at the percentage number above each bar in the graph. In this example, the district's average salary in 2021 increased 9% from the year before and then decreased 4% for this year. To determine if the salaries this year are accurate and the decrease in average salary is expected, look for salary anomalies in the salary and fringe variance report. More on that in a little bit. So to the top right of the average teacher's salary graph is another tile that shows high and low salary and fringe amounts for your district. This is a great tool to use to find typos in salary data. If your lowest teacher salary is $7,540, you'd want to look at that staff record to make sure the number is correct. Same thing goes for the high salary. To view the staff person who has the salary shown, just hover over the salary number and you'll see their name and WISE ID in a tooltip. In addition to the low and high salary and fringe amounts, we also show you how many salaries you have reported that are below an amount considered low for a teacher salary, which is a $24,000, and how many are above a high salary of $90,000. To view those staff, you can click on the number of salaries to see a list of staff names, as with the hiring count titles calling out salaries below 24,000 or above 90,000 does not indicate an error. It indicates something that you should look into to confirm. One thing to note with these teacher salaries is understanding that we use um, what we use to signify a teacher. This information can be found in the About the Data link that's indicated or included in each of the teacher salary sections on the dashboard. When displays these figures, we use only staff with a position code of 53 for teacher, omitting interns, subcontracted staff, and staff hired by a CISA. We further filter out staff with a total teaching FTE that's less than 0.95 or with contract days fewer than 160. That's done to exclude part-time teachers who may be receiving a lower salary as a result of a lower workload. So we don't want partial year or part-time employees to alter the numbers for full-time teachers. We're going to go into a demo here next.
All right, thanks, Adam. Let's look at those sections on the data quality dashboard. So here we have those contract and assignment counts, and you can see it's the current year, the previous year, and the one before that. Here's your variance from year over year. You can click on those counts to view the staff who make up that number. So let's look at current year contracts. So there's that list, and then that just might be an easy way for you to see if the number is too high or too low. You can page through this and see maybe who's in there who shouldn't be, or who's missing if your numbers are too low. And this is a section that we added at the beginning of this year, the working agency counts. And we did that mainly for the districts or LEAs who contract staff from another agency like a CISA. So there are some like independent charter schools who contract all of their staff, and they were not showing anything in the hiring agency count section. So we added this section so that for the LEAs who do contract from other agencies, you can see in this section the actual numbers of staff working in your district or your agency. So there isn't a contract tile here because contracts are only at the hiring agency level, but you would be able to see all of the assignments working in your district by assignment count, licensed assignment count, and for the rest of these numbers here. Down at the bottom, we've got the teacher salary section. So this is the comparison of your district's average teacher salary for the past 3 years. The statewide average, which in our test environment is not calculated for all of our years, and the current year is not calculated till we finish the collection and take our snapshot. So this would be blank on your screen, but you would see last year's number here, and you can just compare your average teacher salaries to the statewide average. And then this is the section that's really important to pay attention to because it shows you if there are salaries that are too high or too low based on, the typical salary. So every year there's some districts who, miss a number in a teacher salary, and somebody has $3,784 versus $53,800, whatever the number is. So make sure that you're looking at this, because if there's a salary that's too low for the expected FTE, or too high, you'll see that here. And then again, hovering over that, you can see the name and WISE ID of the person that you'd want to go look at to make sure that those numbers are correct. And so we do that low and high values for salary as well as for fringe benefits. So there are some districts who have errors with their calculation for fringe benefits, and you'd want to make sure you're looking at these to verify that the numbers fall in line with what you expect them to be. And let's head back to our slides.
All right. So the next group of data quality tools we have are the staff reports. There are a number of reports available. each of which slices and dices your staff data into in various ways. A great way to get an understanding of the reports available is to read through the reports overview page in WISEstaff. This page includes a summary of each report, and you can click the report name to go right to the report page. Among the reports, we have summaries that are a view of all staff data, a view of all staff and their data. We also have detailed reports that focus on a specific part of staff data, such as salaries or FTE by position classification. In the next few slides, we'll take a look at examples of each type of report. Since these reports may contain personally identifiable information or PII, so like WISE ID or date of birth, please remember that if you choose to print or email staff reports, make sure copies with personal information are handled securely, since that data should be kept private. So the first group of reports we'll cover are the summary reports, which include a view of all combined staff data, including contract, assignment, and demographic details. The all staff reports and staff corrections form are examples of summary reports. Both are available in the reports menu and contain a combination of contract, assignment, and demographic data. Any staff person with an assignment will appear in these reports, even if their assignment does not require that a contract be entered. In the all staff reports, you can filter staff by one or more schools. Use Control click to highlight multiple schools in that list. Next up in the summary reports is the staff list. Accessible with the WISEstaff reports menu, the staff list has a record for each person with a contract or assignment and is a slimmed down version of the all staff reports and how much data it shows. It has a subset of demographic data along with a few contract details like like salary, fringe benefits, and contract days. You'll also see assignment information for each staff person in a subgrid that is displayed by clicking the chevron on the left of the person's WISE ID. Each assignment displays in its own row. An additional feature of the staff list is the ability to delete a person's contracts and assignments right from the report. This is useful if you accidentally create an assignment or contract per person who should not have been reported as working in your district for the current year. To delete the contract and all assignments for your hiring agency for a staff person, click the red X icon on the far right of the staff record. Then click Delete in the pop-up message to confirm you want to delete the contract and assignments. Use this option only if you want to delete everything for a staff person. If you'd want to delete only an assignment or contract, do that on the person's edit staff page. Speaking of the edit staff page, you can go straight there from the staff list by clicking the person's WISE ID or on the edit icon on the left of the delete icon. Our final summary report is the FTE summary. This report sums up assignments, FTE by position, classification, and then breaks it down by gender and race or ethnicity. This data is also available to the public in the public staff FTE by ethnicity and gender report. So it's helpful to review it prior to final certification to make sure your staff are represented accurately. This report can also be useful to review FTE totals by position, such as teacher, support staff, program coordinators, etc. And we'll take a look here next.
Thanks, Adam. So in your reports menu, let's start at the overview page. You can see all of the individual reports listed here, and we've talked about some of these already that are the summary reports. We're going to get into some detailed reports next. But the overview page that Adam showed earlier does have a brief summary of course, not in my test environment. Let me do a quick pivot here. Reports, log back in. Nope. All right. So imagine that there's more information on this section here. This is our test environment, so it's not up to date with production, but you can see the list of reports. You can click on the report to get right to that page. So let's look at that staff list, which is again a list of everybody in your district who has an assignment and or contract. You've got a little bit of information here. You can expand their record to see their assignment information if they haven't entered. You can filter this list. Some of these are new this year. You can filter by position. So if you want to look at all of your teachers or all of your principals, you can use this filter to do that. You can even go back and look at previous year's staff lists. That might be an easy way to compare year to year to see if people are, if they were with you last year or not with you, to do a comparison for this year compared to last year. And then here is that edit button that will take you to their WISE-ID edit staff record, same place as if you clicked on their WISE-ID. And then over here is that delete button. Again, that deletes all contract and assignment data for that individual. So if you want to delete that person completely from your staff list for the year, that's the button that you would use to do that. And then we will look at the, let's do the all staff, we'll do the FTE summary report. And again, this has a lot of filters as well. So you can look at the staff by school, by position type, and then just see the summary of FTE breakdown by race and gender. You can include additional fields if you want to see the school, the name of the school that the staff are at. This is summarized by position, so you're not going to see the individual names on this page. It's just the summary of the FTE by race and gender for those position types. So that's just a quick look at our summary reports. We'll look at some more detailed reports after the next couple slides. So back to you, Adam.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, so next up are the detailed reports, which are reports with a specific set of data and meant for specific purposes. So the first one we'll look at is the salary report. This report is good for reviewing all contract data and comparing it to your HR data, since it displays all contract data elements, salary, fringe, contract days, years of experience, and highest degree earned. It also includes FTE and some demographic details. You can filter this report by position, classification, and specific position. If you desire, for example, to review all teacher salaries or all administrator salaries, within the salary report screen, you can sort the data by any of the column headers, and you can download the full report into Excel and then sort with filters, however you like. All right. The next two reports can help you recognize significant data variances, like the data quality dashboards do, to call your attention to data that may be incorrect. The first of these is the admin salary / fringe report. This report includes contract and assignment data for staff with an administrator position classification. We have seen that these salaries are the most highly scrutinized by researchers and reporters. So we have this report just run for administrative salaries. The content is similar to the all staff reports, but the reason it's a specialized report is that it also includes a comparison to data from the previous year. It's like the hiring agency counts tile on the dashboard, but detailed for every administrative or administrator staff person. As you can see in the screenshot, We've got a staff person with a 99% reduction in salary and fringe benefit amounts for this year compared to last year, which should prompt you to take a second look at their contract and their WISEstaff record. An easy way to find all the records with a high variance percentage would be to download this report to Excel and then sort the data with the salary change column on the fringe benefit change column or the fringe benefit change column and look for numbers higher than what a standard salary change would be from year to year. Anything above that number would warrant a closer look. The salary fringe variance report is similar to the admin salary fringe report in that it includes salary and fringe data for the previous and current year, but it also lets you set your own filters and highlights records that fall outside your selected variance ranges. As with other reports, this shows the most current staff data and can be downloaded into an Excel, but I would utilize highlighting that the report screen has to draw attention to records that vary significantly from last year. Let's take a look at the report on the next slide. So at the top of the page are staff qualifier filters and data variance filters. It's a lot of fields, I know. We tried to give you a place to start by defaulting some standard values in those fields, but you are more than welcome to adjust them to suit your needs. Our default filters are set to look for full-time staff by asking for results where the FTE is 0.80 or higher, and the contract days are 145 or higher. The data variance filters are set to search for records that fall outside the standard salary and fringe amounts we see most often across the state. The blue checkboxes indicate that those filters will be applied. If you don't want to include any of those filters in your report, you can uncheck those boxes and then check the filter button to refresh your results. Once the results are displayed, the system outlines any values in red which exceed a filter. In our example here, some records have overages in the salary change and fringe report from last year to this year. Some records have only one overage. And what's been our theme today with using the data quality tools, these callouts don't guarantee there's an error in the data. The red outlining is meant to grab your attention and say, maybe we should make sure that this educator's fringe benefits this year are really 290% greater than last year's. And maybe they are. If so, that's fine. But you checked it and verified it, and that's what we're asking you to do. So looking at the screenshot, you can see how helpful it is to review this data on this page itself rather than downloading it to Excel. But of course, that's your choice. So the option to download is still there if you want it. And we'll take a look at a demo next.
Okay, so we are looking at our detailed reports. So we'll go back to our reports menu here, and the admin salary fringe was one that we looked at. And this shows you again the salary fringe and some contract information as well as assignment info for just the staff with an administrative classification for their assignment. And you can see which assignments make that up in this position field. So reading specialist is one that some folks ask about every year. It is considered an administrative position, so that one will show up in this list. But here are all the ones that make up that administrative type of assignment. And so here you can see it's just a view of the information. If we collapse those assignment records, in this case, I didn't have any last year's salary for these staff, but you would see last year's salary and the percentage change. So if there's a large difference, you'd want to take a look at that and make sure those numbers are accurate. And then the salary and fringe variance report is the other one that's I think is very helpful. Here's those filters that you have at the top of the page. Here's where we say we're looking at staff with 0.8 FTE or higher, 145 contract days. You're welcome to change these to meet whatever needs you have for how you want to filter the data. And then if you do want to not use some of these filters, you can uncheck those boxes, and then that metric would not be included in what the system is bringing back when you click the filter button. And then you can change these amounts as well. And you can say, I want to see things that are greater than a certain salary number. So you've got a lot of flexibility here with what you can do. If you make any changes, you would click filter and then your results would show down here at the bottom. And again, you'd want to pay most attention to anything that's outlined in red because those are the things that you're filtering for to try to find those things that are outside the normal variances. So that's a quick look at the detailed salary reports. Let's go back to Adam and our slides to continue.
Perfect. So the next detailed report we have is the aggregate staff report, which is something not all of you may use since aggregate staff are those who are subcontracted from a third party for specific positions, like cafeteria workers, bus drivers, or building maintenance. While there is an aggregate staff report available in the reports menu, I'm going to recommend that you do your review of the aggregate staff FTE on the screen where you enter it rather than using the report. So here's an example of the enter aggregate staff FTE page that shows last year's entries in addition to this year's entries, which I think makes it more useful because you can compare your contracts between the years. If you remember back to an earlier slide, there is a tile on the data quality dashboard that shows you a comparison of aggregate FTE for this year and two previous years. So that's a good place to start to review the aggregate FTE number as a whole. This page is a bit better because it shows you the breakdown of which assignments and which contractors you use this year compared to last year. We can see each contracting agency and the assignment areas in FTE for those assignments, and then the total FTE for each year. So this is a great way to make sure aggregate assignments are accounted for. Our next group of data quality tools are the automated data validations. During the preliminary and final certification periods, WISEstaff runs a nightly data verification process to review all staff data and identify missing or suspect values. Issues are reported as errors, warnings, or informational messages based on the severity of the issue. An issue of critical severity, which indicates that the data is missing or must be changed because it doesn't follow the standard staff data rules, is reported as an error. An issue of lesser severity, but still important, and may be acceptable is noted as a warning. A minor issue, typically data that has been entered but is not required based on a person's assignment, is reported as an informational message. And remember, in order to complete your final certification, all errors must be resolved and all warnings must be acknowledged or resolved. Informational messages will be cleared out prior to the final data reporting snapshot. So once you've viewed them, you don't need anything further with those ones. There are several places you can go to view your active validation messages and warnings. You'll see them on the staff collection checklist under task 3F, run data validation. The number of errors will show in red, indicating they must be resolved before final certification. The number of warnings also show in red when they are active and not yet acknowledged. Informational messages may be shown in red but because they are a low severity, they'll not prevent you from finishing your final certification. Within the checklist, you can click on the Run Data Validation task description to go to the Validate Staff Data page to view details of each validation message. In addition to reviewing your validation message counts on the staff collection checklist, you can also go directly to the Validate Staff Data page to view those validation messages in further detail. From the Manage Staff Data menu, select the Validate Staff Data option. This is where you will review or view the details of the validation messages and have the ability to resolve or acknowledge the issue. The Validate Staff Data screen will show you a running total of errors, warnings, and info messages. The warnings are divided into acknowledged and unacknowledged counts. When you're ready to complete your final certification step, you'll need to have 0 errors and 0 unacknowledged warnings. To work the errors and warnings, you can review the description of the issue in the message field and then click the blue Resolve link in the Resolve column to navigate to the page where you can view and or resolve the issue. Depending on the type of issue, that link may direct you to the staff list. In a case where you are missing a certain assignment type or a specific staff person's edit staff page, in a case where their contract information is missing, to name just a few examples. When the issue you are working on is a warning and you cannot fully resolve the issue, you may need to acknowledge it to clear it out of the unacknowledged warnings list. Some warnings require comments to be entered before acknowledging them. Those warning codes are listed on the Validate Staff Data page. In those cases, you can click the View Edit link in the comment column, enter your comment explaining why the issue will not resolve, and then click the checkbox to acknowledge the column, which is abbreviated as ACKN. And then Jennifer's going to do a demo next.
I'm gonna Sorry, I need to get back to our slides. I clicked too many times here. There we go. All right, so from the checklist, we'll take a look at the Validate Staff Data section of Step 3 and look at the counts. And my test system, there we go. So here's the Run Data Validation task. Here are the counts that you'll see of how many of those issues you have open. And if you want to go right to that page, just click on that task. And here is the grid of the information. So you've got the number of items up here in this section, 3 errors, 4 acknowledged warnings, 1 unacknowledged warning. Each item, whether it's a warning or error, shows in its own row. And you've basically got the type over here. Clicking this resolve link will take you to the page where you can review the data and make your corrections. If it is a warning that requires a comment before you're able to acknowledge it, this box would not be enabled until you enter a comment. So in this case, this one looks like you can enter a comment, but it's not required. So you would enter your comment, click Save and Close, and then you would be able to acknowledge that warning if that's something that the data is correct as is. If there's a change that needs to be made, you would make the correction, and that would remove the warning from your page. If the data is correct as is, then you can acknowledge the warning. And again, sometimes you might need to enter a comment before you can do that. So the message for what each issue is here in the message column. If you wanted to view information about a little bit more detail about why this generated, you can click on the code link, and that will take you to a knowledge base article with some more information. And if you're working through your errors and warnings and want to refresh the page to make sure that what you fixed resolved the issue, you can click this refresh validation button, and that will run through the whole validation process just for your district and reset the page basically to show you what remains after the changes that you've made. So that is it for our validate staff data. Let's head back to the next slide.
Perfect. Thank you. And we kind of covered this. So again, to get more information on why errors and warnings were generated or better understand how to resolve it, check out the knowledge-based article. So our KBA tools include descriptions of why errors happen and how to fix them. We link those directly into the WISEstaff. That's the little code that Jennifer clicked on. So you can also find them on our DPI website. So if you go to the DPI website, just search for WISEstaff help and then scroll down to other useful links, and you can see the knowledge-based article link there. On that knowledge-based article link, if you click that, you can type in the code on that page, and it will bring up the code itself. So, yep. All right. So next, let's look at one of the places where staff data are reported and how you can view the data for your district and other districts. After our yearly staff snapshot is complete, we publish the current school year's staff data on DPI's public staff report website. Here you can see staff data all the way back to the 2016-27 school year. There are a number of different reports available, broken down by data category. The public all staff report is a comprehensive list of all reported staff, some demographic data, and their assignment and contract information. These reports are also used regularly by journalists and researchers, so it's important that your data is as accurate a reflection of your district's staff as possible. And we'll take a look at a demo here next.
Thanks, Adam. I'm just going to do a quick time check too. We are running a little long. We're scheduled to go until noon. We have a couple more slides to get through. So if anybody does have any questions that you'd like to ask or a request for additional demonstration, please type those into the Teams chat. And then if you're able to stay on the call, I can go over a little bit. I'm not sure if Adam can, but we can get your questions answered. Or if you need to leave, you can post your question, then we'll follow up with you afterwards to get your questions answered. So let's quickly look at our public staff reports. And I'm never sure of how often district users look at these reports. So if this is something you're not familiar with, I'll Google for DPI public staff reports, and you'll find the link there. This information is also accessible from within the WISEstaff pages on the DPI website, but we've got a list of all of the public staff reports that we publish. And again, these reports are made up of the data that we gather and compile in our final snapshot that we'll take on March 19th this year after the deadline for final certification for WISEstaff. So we have that deadline, we close down WISEstaff for further edits, we take our snapshot, and then we review all of that snapshot data and generate these reports from that data. So this public all staff report is the most comprehensive one. You have the ability to filter a couple different ways. Let's just look at one district here. So we'll look at Albany's information, click search, and that will be a full list of all of their staff. We don't disclose any PII on here. It's just their some demographic information, race and gender, entity ID, and then their assignment and contract information, all of which is public data. So there's the contract information, here's the assignment information, and you can download this and sort it however you like. But that's just a quick look at that public all staff report. If you wanted to look at data prior to the 2016-17 school year, we have individual downloaded reports available on the DPI website that you can get to by clicking that link there. So we'll go back to you, Adam.
Thanks. And I can definitely hang a little bit longer too if you have questions. So next up, licensing help here. Oh, I jumped too far. Oh, I did. Okay. All right. So data problems after the final snapshot. If you find errors with the data you reported in WISEstaff after the March 18th deadline, you will not be able to make changes to that data, but you can submit a data errata letter so that the error is acknowledged and the correct data is published on the DPI website. So data errata letters are submitted through the WISE admin portal. Check with your district's WISE system security administrator to determine who can submit letters on your behalf. You can view examples of data errata templates and the format for reporting errors on the DPI website. So just type in data errata on the regular DPI website. Right in the search bar, it brings up the data errata page. You can also see examples on the other letters that other districts or schools have submitted, maybe for similar issues. So definitely take a look at those if you're not sure what to put in the data errata. And always remember, PII does not go in a data errata letter. Um, so all right, so let's take a look next at licensing help. So that concludes the training for the tasks required for submission for your YStaff final certification. So we're just going to look at a couple places where you can go if you have questions related to completing those tasks. So there are two different types of help tickets you can submit. One is for licensing and one is for kind of general questions about maybe the YStaff system, errors, anything outside of licensing. Okay, so um, if you look at if you're in YStaff, there's the little help button. Click the help button. It's a little drop down. It'll have two different options for the help tickets. Otherwise, there's also information on licensing on our DPI website. So some links are shown in the slide here, but you can always search for licensing or licensing help on the DPI website. For help with licensing, remember you can submit a separate help ticket for that from the Need Help menu inside the YStaff. So um, a couple other helpful resources linked here. Some examples include, so like the YStaff help, links to WISE help pages and useful resources, data elements, so lists of links to all WISEstaff data elements, their descriptions, uses, codes, knowledge base articles, which again we talked on that a little bit. You can click that code inside where you see the errors and the warnings, or you can go to the page and type in the codes. It's also a very good page to go to if you have trouble sleeping. There's lots and lots of information on that KBA page. WISE Data Events Calendar. So maybe you've already been to that page. It's a great page. We have a lot of good information on different trainings coming up, deadlines, webinars. So if you're involved in some of the other data reporting, or if you're looking for conferences, or if you work with student information systems, we try to list a lot of those types of conventions and whatnot on that page as well. So very, very good place to go. Next up, giving feedback. So we're always looking for your feedback. A lot of enhancements have actually come from user feedback. So if you have recommendations, definitely let us know. We very much value your feedback and want to make this whole process as easy as possible for you. We know that a lot of you have dual roles at your schools and districts, so this might not be your main task at your school or district. So if there's anything we can do or change or update, we want to hear from you, and we will try to make that happen. Also, staying in contact. Right now, we have WISEstaff user group calls. They are listed on the WISE events calendar. So again, WISE events calendar, very, very helpful. I would recommend um, saving that as a link in your favorites. Um, right now, we're doing them weekly. They will go through the certification timeline. So as far as how long these calls go, they start up in the beginning of the year when WISEstaff Open. So they're very, very helpful. You can also join the WISE community to connect with other folks doing WISEstaff. Sometimes we'll put announcements if there's outages for that. If you are not currently a part of the WISE community and would like to be, just submit a help ticket with your information on which email to add, and we'll get you added to that. So and then there is the help ticket link. So again, the help ticket link is under the need help. It's also on many of our DPI web pages, generally on the left side as you're scrolling down. Again, keep track of dates and deadlines. WISE events calendar. I know we've mentioned it a couple of times. It is a very, very helpful tool in just finding resources and some of these trainings. So you can sort it to a month view. You can do a list view. I like the month view because it looks like a calendar. But however you want to use it, it's there for you. So next up, let's take a look and see if we had any questions come in here.
Yep, we did have one question from Sarah about if I have warnings that I have acknowledged and entered comments for, how do I know if they will be resolved or fall off on the final certification? After March 4th, will it allow me to do the final certification with those warnings as long as they are acknowledged? And I was in the midst of typing up the response, but I'll just say it here. I'll do the little bit that I had. So yes, you will be able to submit your final certification once we open that up on March 4th if your warnings are acknowledged. So having an acknowledged warning will does not prevent you from submitting your final certification. Only the unacknowledged warnings would prevent that, or errors would. So the acknowledged warnings don't ever really fall off of your list. If the warning still exists and the data still triggers that warning, as long as you've acknowledged it, it still exists, but it kind of stays in the background and doesn't prevent you from certifying. So you'll still see that as an acknowledged warning on your Validate Staff Data page if you choose to view those acknowledged warnings, but it won't prevent you from doing your certification. So great question there. Any other questions from anyone or requests for additional demonstrations?
All right, while
If
we're giving
not,
that,
oh,
oh
go ahead,
yeah,
Adam.
sorry. Yeah, while we're giving everyone a moment just to think about any last minute questions, I saw the question and Jennifer did answer it about yes, we did record this. We do have a copy of the slide deck. We will do our best to get it here on the website as quick as we can. The process for the video recording does take a little bit longer, so we will try to get the slide deck up on the website here, hopefully by the end of the week. And then within a day or two next week, hopefully by Tuesday, we can also have the video up there as well.
Great, thanks, Adam. I think we'll wrap up since we're a couple minutes over time. Thank you, everyone, very much for joining. And if you have other questions or think of other questions, as Adam said, we have our weekly WISEstaff user group call Tuesdays at 11 a.m. And you can find the link to join that on the WISE Data Events calendar. So thanks, everyone, very much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you all for being here. Enjoy.